Okay, what an amazing episode this week. I'm so happy to share that we brought on Trina Spear, who is the CEO and founder of FIGS Scrubs. Yes, I'm wearing my Formex right now. What an amazing story. I got to tell you, entrepreneurship is so difficult. And she has this remarkable story about having this idea with her partner, Heather, selling these fitted scrubs out of literally the trunk of their car. She has an MBA from Harvard, uses that experience to take this company, and the two of them are the first women in the history of the New York Stock Exchange to ring the bell for a public company. And she has not stopped there. What I love most about it is her passion for her mission. Her company is missionary, changing and building hospitals around the world and helping healthcare providers. It's a very inspirational story, and we're thrilled to be able to share it. Dr. Scott Sigman, please enjoy.
From medical media, this is The Ortho Show.
Hello, world. Dr. Scott Sigman, your favorite opioid-sparing orthopedic surgeon, here for another episode of the Ortho Show podcast, where everyone knows we bring you the best of the best in the orthopedic space. And we're doing a little bit of a pivot today. We're not going to have our standard orthopedic surgeon, but we're having an amazing entrepreneurial story here from Trina Spear, the CEO and co-founder of FIGS. Trina, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, doctor. This is going to be great.
Oh, we're going to have so much fun. So, before we get to our shared collegiate alumni story, tell us a little bit. We always like to start from the beginning. Where'd you grow up? Tell us about the story.
Sure. I grew up in Miami, Florida. Went on to college in Boston at Tufts University, which I know we both have that in common. Go Jumbos.
Go Jumbos.
Played tennis there, really focused on finance and economics while studying there. Went on, lived in New York for a number of years. Went to business school back in Boston. And then, I can go into,
We'll go through all the details. I just really want to get started. So you started in Miami. By the way, my youngest is struggling through his sophomore year at the University of Miami. It's the weather down there is horrible, and he's having a hard time getting to classes. No distractions at all on campus. Barely nobody wears clothes anymore on campus. It's like whatever. But yeah, he's working it this year. Jaden, you're doing okay, brother. We appreciate you. You're doing well. But so I love it. So you go to Tufts undergrad, and did you play squash too? Tennis and squash?
I did, but I hadn't ever played squash before. Our assistant tennis coach was the head squash coach, so he just recruited a bunch of us over to squash in the winter, and so picked that up.
I love it because squash players in particular are crazy competitive people, right? I mean, it's a very unique sport in particular. Now, did you know Nancy and Lisa Stern along the way? Do you remember those names? They were alumni my year. I mean, I graduated '86, but they were all American tennis players back in the day and lacrosse players. And yeah, they were awesome. But anyway, so should we do the jumbo thing, or with the
is that? I don't think I learned that.
You didn't learn that one? Okay, great. Yeah, this is the jumbo thing again with the stampede. No, I love it. What's interesting about Tufts? What a great breeding ground for education, right? People were going to pre-med, they were going to law school, they were going to business, politics, acting, you name it. I mean, there's people from all over these genres that have gone from Tufts, and you decided it was going to be business for you. And so you went out and you hit Wall Street. Was that your first job out of school?
That's right. Yeah. So, and I think that's what makes Tufts so great. Liberal arts education. It's not. You can just learn a lot of different elements of all different aspects, different industries, and I think that was helpful. As I went on to work in investment banking at Citi as my first job, I was an investment banking analyst in the tech group in New York City, working in Tribeca, which was awesome. And so did that for a couple of years, and then went on to their private equity division for another 2 years. So in total, was at Citi for 4 years before business school.
All right, so that's awesome. So that's sort of laying the groundwork for some of the things that you're going to need to do as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, we'll talk about that because I want to take a deep dive on the financing. I'm fascinated by that. I'm the chief medical officer and founder of a company right now called OrthoLaser. We just finished our Series A capital raise. So,
Oh, congrats.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, but it's not easy. And so, I mean, you're just an amazing success story. So we'll
Thank
work our way through it. Sorry. So it's business school, which is good. 4 years in the real world. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people go grab their MBA right after college. They don't have any experience. They don't know what they want to do. What was your plan with your MBA? Were you gonna stay in the private equity space? Were you gonna start your own business? What was your thought?
Well, I applied to business school in 2008 when the whole world was falling apart.
It blew up,
Yeah,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
all the very senior people and managing directors that I was working with, some of them had been worked at the firm for 20, 30 years and were putting their stuff in a box and walking out the
Crazy,
building during
crazy
the
stuff.
great recession. And so it was this interesting time where it felt like nothing was certain. And even financial jobs on Wall Street that you think, okay, once I'm here, I'll be here, and this is a very secure position. I felt like that wasn't the case anymore, and so I really went to business school to kind of to go, and I think a lot of my peers to go into hiding a bit and figure out what the world would look like and what we wanted to all do next. And I think my class, I graduated HBS in 2011, was the first class that there were less investment bankers, hedge fund, private equity people, and more entrepreneurs. And there was that shift kind of post the '08, Lehman and all of
Yeah,
that.
so well, what a great breeding ground then, right? So then your
Yeah.
classmates are all, and it's serendipitous that you got into Harvard Business School at the time. I mean, right? I mean, otherwise maybe you're searching around for a job, and of course you had worked hard, you had great grades, and you get into the number one business school in the world, and so you're thrilled about that, and then you're working around with other people that are sort of entrepreneurial spirits, perhaps. So that must have been a very, interesting experience.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of came in with a very interesting mindset. A lot of us did that kind of 2 year investment banking, 2 year private equity or a hedge fund type, had that experience, and then kind of came in with a different view of the world and spent time figuring out what the world would look like after that. And we're a lot of sharing of ideas. And, this was also when Uber and Facebook and LinkedIn and kind of the tech world was shifting. And so people were looking at that and thinking about, oh, there's a lot of innovation that's going to come over the next decade. And how can I be a part of that?
All right, so you're at Harvard Business School, and it's like it's a no-brainer. You're there, you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your life, and you're like, just come up with this awesome idea. I'm going to change the way healthcare workers, think of fashion and the way in which they're going to go to work, right? That's just not, that wasn't on your radar, right? I mean, there's no way. So how did you meet Heather? And tell us about the story of the origin of FIGS.
Sure. Well, so after business school, I came out with a lot of debt. So I had to pay that off first. So I went back into Wall Street. I worked at Blackstone for a couple of years. And while I was at Blackstone, a friend of mine who was a mutual friend with Heather Hassan, my co-founder, she introduced us. And Heather had this idea for FIGS. She was sitting with a friend of hers who was a nurse practitioner at Cedars-Sinai, and her friend was wearing these awful, baggy, boxy, ill-fitting, scratchy, itchy scrubs.
That
And
still exists in every hospital and surgery center, by the way, but we'll get there. No
and it was
problem.
crazy at the time. I think it was 2010, 2011 period, time period where I think the size was on the back of the neck, just awful. And she
Awful.
said, I am the best shopper in the world. I will find you better scrubs, which Heather is the best shopper ever. And she went to, she goes, where do you get your scrubs from? And she goes, oh, we go to these stores. And I think there was one in Westwood and near UCLA. And so she walked in and there was a rack of black and a rack of navy and a rack of white. And they were selling medical supplies as well, like knee braces and bedpans, and there was a box in the middle of the floor to find your size. And she was like, wow, not only is the product awful, but this experience is really it's not great. It's stuck in 1950. Like, where am I? And so she said to her friend, give me your scrubs. right? And she took him to her tailor, really just focused on the fit, and gave him back. And everyone at the hospital said to her friend Allison, "Where'd you get your scrubs?" And she said, "Well, my friend kind of made them for me, tailored them for me." And they said, "Well, we need her number." So how the story goes, Heather became known as Scrubs Girl all around LA because all of the doctors and nurses were calling Heather, "Can you fix my scrubs too?" And she was like, "Why are people calling a random girl in LA to fix their scrubs?" I was, like I said, working at Blackstone. We connected. And for about 6 months before I left my job, I was flying from New York to LA. And I was like, "This is really interesting, but I don't know if I could just leave my job yet." So we would we had our first collection, we would put it in her car, and we'd go at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. During the shift change, when all doctors and nurses would change shifts, outside of emergency rooms, out of all around LA.
Oh, get out of here. You're selling, these scrubs out of the back of your car in front of emergency rooms. I mean, you can get arrested for that these days. I don't
I
know.
know, I know. And sometimes we would have to move over and then we would go around the corner, come back.
Oh my
But
God. I
get a
love
big
it.
jug of hot cocoa, big jug of coffee, hand out hot cocoa, ask people what they liked, what they didn't like. It was crazy.
So you have this meeting, right? There's at one point you got to have the initial meeting with Heather. She's like, "All right, these scrubs, this is a great idea, right? I think we can revolutionize the way people are thinking about how they're wearing these scrubs." And you're the business, right? You're the business side of things for sure. You've got your MBA from Harvard. Now you're ready to roll. Was it like instant, like, okay, this is something that I want to do. I'm going to give up my track and I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things. I was just so inspired and impressed with Heather. I mean, yes, she's a creative genius, but she also really understood, financial profiles and how to model a business. And she kind of, the initial genius behind it was the fabric and creating a fabric that looked and felt like it should cost $400, but we were able to create a top for $38 and a pair of pants for $48, but have it be 100 times better than anything out there. And so that was the initial genius of it, which is very much tied to the numbers. And I think, sorry, your second part of the question, I don't know where I went with
Well,
that.
did it sort of like come to you? Like, because obviously you had to think about margins, you had to think how you
Yeah.
were going to scale this business, was the why there? What was the why, right? Because that's so important if you're going to really go and engage in this.
Yeah, I think it was, I spending that time with our community, right, with healthcare professionals like yourself, and realizing that nobody was focused on it, right? Nobody was focused on you. No one was focused on creating a better product for you. Why? The why was, why were there these multi-billion-dollar companies like Nike and Lululemon and Under Armour that were all focused on the athlete? And the athletes are amazing and doing yoga is great, but what about the people saving lives? What about the people building bones? What about the people putting people back together and saving lives and helping patients and curing diseases? What about you, right? And it just seemed so crazy that nobody was focused on healthcare workers. No, everyone was focused on the patient, right? Patient outcomes, which is great. At the end of the day, if you're not focused on the backbone of society, which is healthcare workers that actually make patients better, you're missing the boat. And so we became the first company and the first real brand focused on the provider side, and starting with product, right? Starting with great products so that you can go to your job and do it well with the same level of technical functionality as, it's like people are focused on helping people score more goals, swim faster across the lane, run around the block. Great, but who's building a product with a pocket that's going to hold a tool to save someoe's life? Who's doing that?
Yeah,
That's what.
no, that's awesome. I love that story. So look, I'm a big fan of branding. So tell us the name, because obviously that had to have been a challenge as you were coming through. So give us a story.
Sure. So Heather's favorite fruit are figs.
Okay.
And the best companies, I just kind of bashed Lululemon. Now I'll say something great about Lululemon. The best companies are fruit names. You got apple, you got lemon, you
Okay.
got figs, all of
All
those.
right. Oh, I like fruit based. I
And
love it. I love it.
it's also it was about changing the definition of a word a bit, right? Now people say, you say like pass me your scrubs, like why wear scrubs when you can wear figs? People say pass me my figs, right? And so we actually changed the definition of what that even means, which is super cool. And it's 4 letters, easy to put on the label. There's a number of reasons why it's so great, but yeah, that's the story.
That is a great story. So look, I know this. I mean, entrepreneurship is easy. You just come up with a great idea. You then run around asking a lot of people for money. And next thing you know, you're ringing the bell of the New York Stock Exchange, right? Piece of cake.
Well, every overnight success is 10 years in the making.
Right, exactly. So I have a theory, and I always ask this to our entrepreneur guests in particular, and that is when you come up with a great idea like this, and then you start asking your friends and family and colleagues, what was the initial impression? Was it good or bad? You're going to give up your career
Oh, it
at
was awful.
Blackstone
It
and
was
go in
awful.
and start this
Well,
new.
not only was it bad, it was what's a scrub? You're going to sell what? Scrubs? No, they thought I was crazy. No, my
You
family, my
spent how
friends.
much money to get an MBA at Harvard? You're going to sell scrubs out of the trunk of a car? I mean, come on,
Yeah,
right?
you're working at Blackstone. You're doing so well. Wow, it's really gone downhill.
That is my theory. The more that people say that your idea, which you know is so solid, the more people that tell you that it's a bad idea, the more I know it's a good idea. And so, kudos to you. That's the truth and experience of an entrepreneur is to have the courage to innovate against skepticism and against all odds,
Mhm.
because there's no handbook, right? There's no playbook on how you're going to do this. On any given day, you can be just as close to closing your company as you are to having success. It's hard.
Yeah, and I think, if everyone thought it was great, there would be no opportunity. Somebody would have already figured it out.
Good point.
So I
So,
think, it's really about taking that leap. I was 28 at the time, and so, didn't have family, don't have a mortgage, and you're able to take risks. And I also didn't love, and I felt like people around me in the financial world were so passionate about that. And so, it's also important to really be passionate and love what you're doing and be good at it. I didn't think I was the best person at that job.
well, but you're also young, so you could afford failure at that moment. If it truly at the age of 28 didn't work out, you still could have rallied and relied back on your previous, education and learning as well. All right, next up is funding, right? So you've got this great idea. Everybody's telling you it's a bad idea. So the first person you call is your mother or maybe your father, and you ask for some money to put into this thing, right? But then after that, you got to start paying the bill. So walk us through give us a brief, the Reader's Digest of your financing journey. We don't have to go all the way to the IPO, but how did you get some initial funding to get this thing off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, we had so many meetings and everyone said no, and no one really got it. And most people that have funds and allocate capital aren't in the healthcare world and they don't understand the problems that you as a healthcare professional face, right? And so they didn't, because they're not the customer and it's not intended for them, that became a tricky experience of kind of walking people through how big of a problem this was and why we were the ones that could go help solve it. And really brand an unbranded industry, decommoditize what many believe was a commodity product, build a community around a profession where no one was focused. And so, we figured out how to tell that story, and we got we finally got a few people to write some checks. And so we raised, $2 million in our seed round. We raised a little bit more money after that. But what we realized was that this was something that we needed to build a real business that's profitable. So we don't need to depend on these conversations. We don't need to depend on these people to ensure our success. And so over time, I think we raised in total like 65 million. We only ever spent 10 of it to get the business to profitability, which at this point we've generated over $2.5 billion of cumulative revenue with 400 million-ish of EBITDA, which is, I don't know another business that's been able to do that. And it all came from not knowing when we would get that next dollar and not knowing if and wanting to control the business and wanting to build a real business.
It was interesting for me. We just went through our $7 million Series A capital raise for OrthoLaser, and now I just have this amazing team, and that's what I want to ask you about next. We brought in a CEO, a seasoned CEO that has had multiple exits in the orthopedic industry. And I remember my first board meeting as we had transitioned. We had all these board of directors now, and I'm still the largest shareholder, but I don't have the day-to-day operations so much anymore. But what I was most amazed at, we even invited one of our family office investors to be there. And they were like, this is the part I didn't get. Like, when you get this capital, like, you need to spend it, right? Nobody gives you, $5 million and asks you to keep it in the bank, right? You have to take that and scale and grow your business. You're going to roll through that 5 million in your cash burn, but then you're going to have more money in it to replace it. So that constant evolution really is challenging.
Yeah, and I think it's about investing in it the right places to your point, to build and scale the business. And so, we were always really disciplined in how we spent it. I mean, we always say invest, don't spend, right? And so it's about where are you putting that capital to get a return? And sometimes it's a longer term or a longer return, right? Okay, we built the first ever ambassador program for medical professionals and created the medical influencer, if you will. And so there was a lot there that, there wasn't an immediate return on, but we knew that we were building to something bigger. And we knew we wanted to invest in obviously a great product. We wanted to invest in putting healthcare professionals on billboards so we can inspire the next generation to become them. That's a longer term play, but it's something that we felt really passionate about in terms of our mission and serving those who serve others, and really putting healthcare professionals on the map in a way that athletes like Serena Williams and Tom Brady are put on that in that spotlight every day. That was kind of what we wanted to do.
Yeah, no, and it's visionary. I mean, there was no question about it. That's not something that had been done previously, and you really sort of created that niche. And I love that. Invest, don't spend. I mean, that is just a great mantra for sure. All right, so let's talk about the pandemic a little bit, because that truly revolutionized work for me. So, right after the world didn't need a sports medicine orthopedic surgeon for about 10 weeks, right? So I'm sitting at home waiting for stuff. I started my podcast and started doing all those other cool stuff. But I remember vividly, all right, it's time to go back to work. I'm like, man, like, I don't want to wear a suit. Like, I've been hanging out for 10 weeks and not doing much. Like, I want to wear some scrubs. And so I ordered scrubs from like 4 different companies. They all came in, and I sort of tried them on, and I did this whole thing. And I'm not blowing smoke up anybody. I'm telling you, the FIGS were the best ones. Okay, so I put the FIGS on, and thank you, Trina. I have never looked back. I literally wear scrubs to work every single day now in the office setting. I wear them into work. Then I got to go put those lousy scrubs on that they have, from the hospital. So ironically, I have to get out of my good fitting FIGS and go into those lousy, corporate made, scratchy scrubs and put them on to go to work. But I mean, really, that must have been an opportunity, a real boon for you at that moment, from the pandemic, as people were sitting home thinking about what they were going to do. How did that affect your business strategy and model?
Sure. I mean, it was really an intense time, and we have such a deep and strong relationship with our community. And so hearing the stories of our healthcare workers on the front lines leading us through this pandemic, how can we show up and serve in a bigger way? The stories of putting your mask in the oven after every use, it was like when we were in that time, like March 2020, it was
bad. It was
crazy.
bad. It was
And
bad.
no one had what they needed to feel protected at work. And so, we shifted our supply chain. We got into PPE, making as many, hazmat suits and masks and gear so that you could be okay in that environment. And so, yes, our business accelerated right a bit during that time and brought new people like yourself that said, is it sterile to wear a suit to work every day like that? I'm trying.
The tie. Can you believe we used to wear ties? You know how much bacteria was on a tie?
Exactly.
I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever.
Exactly. No, it didn't really make sense, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of people shifted into wearing scrubs, which I think is important, right? You launder them, you wash them, you go back, and it's great. And so and it's more you're more comfortable. And you do look, and I think because of FIGS now, healthcare professionals can look professional in your scrubs, which wasn't the case before. And so, all of that, it was unprecedented, obviously an unprecedented time. I'm really proud of how our team showed up during this moment. We launched our New Icons campaign as the Olympics got put down in 2020. Was the same time that we said, well, here are your real people that we should look up to. And so it was our New Icons campaign
Awesome.
and showcased, all the people doing the world's most important work during this historical time. That and you all are the ones who got us through. So really, really crazy though.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a wonderful story, and it's just amazing sometimes how just timing, how things play out and your reactions and what you do. I'm going to tell you a funny story. We're going to get into the orthopedic thing a little bit, but I was just at AAOS, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery, and you guys did a wonderful event with the Joey Journal. I'm sure you're aware. Beth
Yeah.
helped to arrange for it, and so Anam Hashmani was there too. I got to meet her. What a great event! I mean, it was just so much fun. You guys were passing out T-shirts and socks and really cool stuff, and it was really awesome. So, but long story is, I'm talking to Anam, and I tell her, I've got this big CBS interview, national news interview coming up on this ACL thing that I'm doing. And I wore these scrubs to the event. And she's like, well, that's awesome. Let's get you a couple of different colors. So, you have a couple choices and then let me send you, these cool new shoes, like the New Balance shoes where it's like, it says right in the bottom, it says, be awesome today, or it was just so cool. But then I go to work yesterday and I'm wearing my new burgundy Formex, and it was like an Old Spice commercial. All I can tell you, nobody was coming up to smell me, but everybody all throughout the office was coming up and playing with my scrubs or pulling on them. They're like, these are so comfortable. And they're like, you look so fit, Dr. Sigman. And I was like, this is awesome. I just thought I'd share that story with you because
That's
it
the
was so
best.
classic,
That's the
right?
best.
As good as it gets. I love it.
Well, now everyone's trying to wear FIGS so they can pretend to be you, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
happens.
Well, that's exactly what happens. You set the standard. It's become a part of my brand now, actually. So, no, we're happy to wear it as well. They're so comfortable. We're like, drop and give me 20 in between the patients next time because they feel so good. So talk to us now about what your current role is, right? You've taken this company. Now you're a billion-dollar company. The New York Stock Exchange ringing the bell had to be one of the most amazing moments. But eventually, it gets big, right? You have to relinquish some control and you have to delegate. So what's your role day to day these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We went public in 2021, which was, like you said, a very, very cool experience. Heather and I were the first co-founder, co-CEO women to ever take a company public, which was awesome. And we feel like really showing that you can do it, right? And having a mission and a purpose that's pretty grand of really serving those who serve others and making sure that you're taken care of and that you have the best experience being a healthcare professional in the world. And how can we get more people to do this? And so that's really where my focus is now is how can we get more people like you? Because if we don't have healthcare professionals, we're all going to die. I mean, that is the case, right? And so how do we help with the system on the systems side as well, right? There's a lot of issues that are challenges to the healthcare system broadly. We have an advocacy team now in Washington, D.C., fighting for better pay, better workplace safety, better training, mental health support, things like that. And so focused on like you said, delegating, bringing on great people onto the team. We have a great leadership team. We have a great, this company pretty lean for where we are, about 300 to 400 people total in the whole company. And so, focused on obviously hiring the best people. Yeah, but it's like I'm the luckiest person alive, right? Like I get to wake up and serve the people doing the world's most important work, period, full stop. That's awesome. And that's, why I love what I do.
Yeah, you you remind me of Ivan Tornos, the CEO of Zimmer Biomet. Just passionate, the face of the business, leading from the front, right? Available always to be able to talk and be able to share their amazing stories. When I look at companies, I look at companies and I think they're either missionary or mercenary, right? So the mercenary companies are the ones profits for the company, the private equity world, right? Return on investment, who really cares about what's happening? But, your company, just like mine, OrthoLase, we're a missionary company where we use laser to help, pain and inflammation to avoid opioids and create alternative solutions for patients. And so you've done that, and that's actually part of your culture. And so you mentioned it, your advocacy programs that you have at Capitol Hill, the Lauren Breen, the SAVE Act, the Awesome Human Bills Act. Also your global impact too, right? You're not just here in the US, you're really trying to share to healthcare providers around the world. Doug Jackson, who is one of my absolute favorite people on the planet from Project Cure, is a dear friend, and Dana Jacoby as well. And I was with Doug at the AAOS meeting at Joey, and he was just so prideful of the relationship that he's had with FIGS and how you're helping healthcare professionals in some of the most underserved populations around the world. That has to make you feel really good.
Oh yeah, and I think there's so much more to do, and we're just getting started. Like we built a hospital in Kenya, a FIGS
Amazing.
operating theater, in
Amazing.
Kuala, Kenya, and we're providing access to 500,000 people in that community who didn't have access to the right kind of healthcare. And so, how can we do more of that, right? Open nursing schools, open more hospitals, get people better treatment, better care, and work with people like yourself to elevate the game, right? And I don't know how you have time to do what you do. I mean, to be an orthopedic surgeon and start a business and I
Well,
mean,
we only did eight surgeries today, and I was able to get home at 3:30 so I could interview you, Trina. Come on, man. We got to get it all
I
done.
mean that's the thing that is so inspiring, right?
Yeah.
That you're able to, like, my job is easy comparatively.
Uh,
Um,
humi
so
humility is a wonderful thing, Trina, and it just exudes out of your pores. This is an orthopedic show, so we got to talk a little bit about orthopedics. And
yeah.
one of my favorite events was recently at OSET. Again, Best helped to arrange all of that. What a wonderful event for you. And I remember that picture that we were all in with our burgundy scrubs. That iconic picture of there must have been like 400 orthopedic surgeons from around the world and healthcare providers all wearing your scrubs for a picture to be able to share around. How cool was that?
Oh, that was just the coolest. Well, it's the coolest moment, but also an awesome conference. And, really just, you know, being around the orthopedic field. I mean, it was doctors, nurses, all different types of people in this field. And we had just come off of the Olympics campaign, where, our whole campaign was "It takes heart to build bodies that break records."
Yeah,
And
I want to talk about that separately because
yeah,
that's so important. But there was a couple of moments that really stuck out for me. Your inspirational keynote address. You just had everybody in tears. I mean, it was awesome and so incredibly well received. You talked about FIGS ambassadors. Betsy Grunch has become a friend. And I don't know if you saw it. We had this really cool viral little TikTok thing where we arm wrestled each other. And so that was like even my kids finally came up to me afterwards. They're like, "You were with Lady Spine Doc, Dad. You actually really know some
did you
people now."
win?
Of course I let her win. No, I'm
Oh,
just
you
kidding.
let her
I'm
win.
kidding, Betsy. I'm kidding, Betsy. No, she
She's
beat
just
me,
the
and then we
best.
did a little UFC thing. It was a lot of fun. But all right, so you brought up the Olympics, and I think that that is just such an amazing thing. So you're hanging out with Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg at the Olympics, but really, I want to hear about the inspiration for the partnership, and I know where it comes from now, having spoken to you about your passion for representing our healthcare providers. I mean, I was the U.S. ski team doc for ski jump team, 20 years ago for the Olympics, and if I wanted swag, I had to like go grab something, sew it onto my jacket and put it out. There was no such thing as any sort of, support to the healthcare providers. You came up with this concept and idea about providing apparel to the entire, United States healthcare medical team. I mean, where did that come from? What a wonderful, amazing idea. It was just so fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was it started with a conversation between Heather, my co-founder, and someone who works at Team USA. And she said, "Who outfits the medical team? Like, who sponsors the medical team for the Olympics?" And he was like, he goes, "I don't
Mm.
know."
Nobody
Like,
knows because
actually didn't
they
even
didn't
know.
exist. It
Yeah,
didn't
but no, he didn't
exist.
even know. Like, he didn't even
Right.
know if they do or if they don't, or like how,
Right.
it's just like that's how much it was not even thought of. And so we said we want to outfit all of the medical team for Team USA in FIGS. And we are going to sponsor this team, and it's going to be awesome. And what we realized through the process, that no company has ever outfitted any medical team to any team country in the world.
In the
And
world.
so this was, it just seemed crazy to us. We felt like just, or like we feel like this group of people, healthcare workers, deserve better, that you deserve the best product. A lot of orthopedic surgeons and doctors and nurses are traveling on their own dime, volunteering their time to support these athletes all around the world during the Olympics. And so this became a really big deal that we wanted the world to not just see the athlete winning that gold medal, who actually put them there. And it's not just the people at the Olympics, it's that entire health journey that athlete is on throughout their life to get to that gold medal. And who are all of those teams behind them to help them win gold, right? And so it takes heart to build bodies that break records. Yes, let's talk about the people breaking records for sure, but let's talk about the people that are helping to build those bodies that are breaking those records. And so that's what that was all about, which I mean, it was one of the coolest things we've ever done. But there's more to come. We got Winter Olympics and we got Winter 26, we got Summer 28. So more to come.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I can only imagine the faces of the healthcare providers when they got their swag bag. I mean, that's just, and the fact that did you surprise them? Did people know? I mean, like, how did you get the names of everybody? I mean, that was like a whole logistical nightmare in and of itself because each
Yeah,
one
I
is
mean,
separate.
yeah, no, it was working very closely with the Team USA team, and they're incredible, incredible, incredible. And so, and we have a lot of exciting things to come with them. But yeah, they were amazing, getting sizes and names and figuring out where to be. And we're at the Team USA house in Paris, and we had a whole event there with all the healthcare team there, and it was just awesome. It was just awesome.
Trina Spear, I mean, I could talk to you for 7, 8 more hours. I mean, what an amazing, lifetime experience. Your benevolent mission, your culture, the support that you have for the medical professionals out there, as first responders, all of us that are taking care of patients, have really made a difference. It's really pretty
Oh,
cool.
thank you. More to
Well,
do, but we're getting somewhere.
yeah, no, you're more than somewhere. You're far along, and we're thrilled to be able to take the ride with you. We can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your amazing story.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, it is my pleasure. This is Dr. Scott Sigman, hashtag follow the fro, host of the Ortho Show. Till next time.